Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. Glad you're here. Okay, got a fun one for you today. We're going to spend about 9 minutes milling up the last logs on this job. I'm milling them actually for the customer's neighbor, as I mentioned in my last video, and I'll drop that link down below for you in the description in case you haven't seen that video. You can check it out. And at the end of this video, there will be a link to the first video in the Bobcat Trail series. So if you want to watch those, you'll be able to do that. All right, so what's this video about? I want to talk about rolling 90 versus rolling 180. And I see this asked a lot on social media. And I see a lot of guys say you have to do this or you have to do that. And so the first thing I want to tell you is you don't have to do anything. You do whatever you want and whatever works for you. That's all that really matters. But what I want to talk about today is why I do one and not the other, and which one I do. We're taking a log, a round log, and we're going to turn it into lumber. But the process to do that is to take the round log and first make it into a square beam called a CANT. CANT is a four-sided, actually it can be three, but technically it's supposed to be a four-sided log. In other words, you've cut four sides off, you have now a square log all the way down the middle. That is called a CANT. How you get to that CANT is really, I think, what's debated a lot on social media. So let's talk about that. There are typically two methods on a bandsaw. One, you cut off the top, slab cut, and then you roll the log 90 degrees into the side supports. And you've probably heard me talk about that if you're not new to the channel, but if you are, if you're new, you'll notice that I roll it 90 degrees into those side supports that are standing upright, and then I press it with the log clamp flush against those and make sure it's tight, and then make sure that the flat surface of the log is flat against those side supports. Now those side supports are actually designed to lean in at about 1/32 of an inch, so that when you push the log against them like that, they actually will shift ever so slightly under pressure and be 90 degrees to the depth. They're designed that way. Now, under an alignment, woodmizer does say you can do them at 90 degrees, or you can do them at 1/32 of an inch under. But either way, when you put the log up against them and you clamp it nice and tight, it's going to be flat. Then you cut the top of the log off. It's called a slab cut. So you make another cut, and you might twitch cut it. That would be where you take another cut just to get it down to a certain height that you want it to be at. And that has a little wane, and you can see when I do that, there will be a little bit of bark or round edge on the lumber coming off. That's called wane. So you make that cut, and then you roll the log again. And now you're in the third roll. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, you're rolling it again, and you take another cut. Now, if you take your square out and you check whether or not the log is square after the first two cuts, you should be square. If your mill is set up right and you made a cut and you rolled it 90 and you made a cut, you should be square every time. And you can actually see whether it's square or not by looking down the log while it's against those side supports. Now, it might take a little practice, but not really. You just get faster at it over time. You know, you do hundreds of logs, you're going to get faster at it versus somebody that's only done 2 or 3 or 10 or 12 logs. So you'll see it. You'll see an air gap between the side supports and the log if it's not square. Now, if for some reason you didn't check it and you cut once, rolled it, cut once, rolled it, now you're on your third cut, guess what? If it's not square, you're going to see that it's not square when it's sitting on the deck. So the people that do this are typically production sawyers. They've got to get as many logs as possible milled up in a short period of time and provide good lumber at the same time. So, is it better or is it worse? Well, we'll talk about that. The second method is the flip 180 method. So the flip 180 method is where you cut the top of the log off and then you roll it 180 degrees so that the flat side is at the bottom, and you'll see me do that on the second log here. Now, the first note is it is going to take a little bit longer to roll a log 180 degrees than it is to roll it 90 degrees. Now, I've mentioned in past videos, if you have a chain turner on a you know, like an LT50 or LT70, it's not going to take quite as long because they're really fast. However, still, it does take longer. So you roll it 180 degrees, you take the top off, now you have flat top and bottom. What do they do with that? Well, they roll it up 90 degrees. here I'm going with this. And then a lot of times they put a carpenter square on the mill and run it up against the now two-sided log to make sure that it's flat against the carpenter square. Well, the problem with that is that you've got to do that with every single log if that's your method of doing that, and that is going to be slower. Is it more accurate is the real question, and I would argue no, it is not, and here's why. If you roll 90 degrees and then you put your carpenter square on, that's no different than if you roll 180 and put your carpenter square on after you roll it again. In terms of, you're going to look at two surfaces and determine whether they're square, either the mill deck and the log or two surfaces on the log. The advantage that the person has who rolls 90 degrees is they've already got two cut faces. They can make sure that they're square on that second cut, and once they make sure they're square, if they're square, they're done. They roll 90 degrees now, they cut that third face, they're already done. They've got three perfectly perpendicular sides, and they're ready to go. They can either now cut a couple more times, one or two or three more times, depending on where the pith is. You really don't want to split the pith, so ideally, and I'll probably talk about this in another video, odds are better than even, meaning that if you're going to cut 3 4-inch 2x4s out of the CANT, that's better than trying to cut 2x6s out of the CANT typically. Okay, so another video for that one. But in this particular case, if you're on your third face, you cut your slab cut, you could go down now, drop 2 more cuts, bang bang, and then roll her up 90 degrees and then cut the whole thing down to the deck. Now if you think about what I just said, that's cut, roll 90, cut, roll 90, cut, roll 90, cut her down to the deck. Versus cut, roll 180, which is 2 90-degree rolls, cut again, then roll 90, check it with a square, because you'd have to do it every time, cut it, then roll it 180, which is again 290, and cut it again. And then try to get it down to the deck. That's really a less efficient system. So there's my thoughts on the 90 versus 180 and why I do one and not the other. And did I tell you which one I do? Well, folks, go back and watch my videos. You'll see which I do 95% of the time. And there's a reason. So anyway, I'm going to let this run. Enjoy it. You're going to see some conversation here between me and the customer and a little bit of footage of upcoming videos. I appreciate you watching, folks. You keep watching. I'm going to step back. The old jar head out.
Damn fine job.
Thank you. I gave you 2. A little bit of paint on that.
Okay, it's more than I need. So.
Yeah, I would be taking one at a time. The rollers to make it easy to get off.
We're hourly.
Yeah.
We're military. That's what we do.
You do, buddy.
Yeah, I'm looking at him. Oh, Rob, get your ass up here. Oh! All right, let me know what I owe you, brother. I got some cash.
Hands. Look at how clean that stuff is. Green here, there must be that wire. I don't see any loose wires, although